Welcome to another glorious podcast. Amber, what's today like?
It's a good day, Martin. How are you today?
Me, I'm having a great one because I think today's going to be a fun conversation.
Okay.
Are you
cool.
ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, what I'd like to talk about is how, and it's specific.
I don't like it.
Why don't you like?
I already don't like where you're going.
Oh, okay.
I just feel like, how about I pull a fast one on you today?
Oh, I love fast ones. You know that.
How about today
Hit me.
I hit you with a topic?
Yeah.
Not that wherever you were going wasn't, I'm sure, great, but I just feel and have this burning desire to talk to you about something that you helped me with in the last 2 years. And I feel like I need more from you about this because
Okay.
you flipped the script on me in what was arguably a really difficult project I was working on.
Okay.
Basically, ultimate project failure was imminent. Competing constraints, scope, time, cost, all out the window. Nothing that I did, but certainly on the project and with the project team, morale was at its lowest and it looked like we were going to be ending.
Okay.
And I was pretty low. And also I was feeling anxiety, quite honestly. And of course, because I'm feisty, it was feisty anxiety, which means it was almost like sparking. And I was spinning in this anxiety. And you said to me in one conversation, I don't know, we were having breakfast or something.
I was trying to think of what it was, but I got it.
Do you know what it is?
I know exactly.
Okay, so what did you say to me then? You say it. Say it again. What did you say?
Yeah, listeners, it was pretty feisty. And it was a lot of external pressure.
Yes.
So I just want to set the stage with that. It was not that the project itself had a problem.
Yeah.
It's that, think of it like a meteor just hit your building that you're trying to build.
Exactly.
It was that kind of scenario.
Yep.
And everything looked like it was meteor on fire.
Yep.
And you came to me with all these war plans because it looked like war. It looked like it did. It looked like war. It looked like war. We're gonna destroy that and kill that and build that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sat back and you looked at the building, if you actually sat back, looked at the critical path, looked at the time, looked at the stuff, and went, "Oh, you know what? Time's gonna take care of this."
That's exactly what you said. And I was like, what? And you said it again. You were like, time will take care of this. And I remember, I think we were at one of our favorite breakfast places. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I was 3 coffees in and I was literally sparking. Yeah, sparking, sparks were flying off me. And I was vibrating from just this anger, frustration, and toiling around what to do. And you said that and it just stopped me in my tracks. And then you repeated it. And I was like, it never even occurred to me. And I think that's maybe what makes me want to hijack today's conversation and make it about you and that, because for me, as a colleague and as a friend, I mean, I was certainly showing an emotional side to you. And it wasn't that you weren't creating space for that. You're quite, I would say, empathetic.
I would have gone to war with you. Let's go.
Exactly. But when you said time will take care of it, I remember thinking to myself, why didn't I think about that? Because in the moment, it just felt like the most obvious other piece of the puzzle that I wasn't considering. And I think the sense of urgency that was spinning in me to try to fix this problem or to try to chart the course through it, because we were in the throes of it in that conversation. And I realized, you're right. There's so much about what's coming that I cannot predict. And as, someone who generally is open to uncertainty, is not intimidated by change, and will look to conflict conversations as opportunities to grow and change, I wasn't doing any of that in that moment. It was I couldn't see any of that. And you were like, time will take care of this. And fast forward to 2 years from then to now, and it has.
Yeah.
So, wise one, what in the world? I've never asked you this. What in the world was going on in your mind when you said those words to me?
Yeah. Yeah. So awesome. Thanks. Love the energy of the other side. What was going through my head was my granddaughter.
Mm,
As crazy as that might sound, uh, when we have things that aren't working, our tendency is to look at the plan based on how we, if I used go to war with you. If I'm looking at a war plan is a war plan because we have an objective, we have a space, and we have a way to get from the objective to the space.
mhm,
That's what we're trying to do. No different than a project, really. Projects and war plans are just the same. But when I thought about my granddaughter, I thought about something different. She was having trouble with walking at that point and learning how to walk. And I can remember everybody being all freaked out and, oh, should we get her this? And should we do that? Should we blah, blah, blah? All different things that we could do. And I'm like, time's going to take care of this. Like, yeah, we didn't used to have all these different strategies for helping a child walk. And look, if someone's dealing with something difficult with your children, understand it's not meant to be that. It's meant to be like, they're going to figure this out because that's what children do.
mm,
They figure it out.
mm,
They figure out how to walk. They figure out what to do. And so if I could look ahead, and which is kind of what I was doing in that moment with my granddaughter, I was like, you know what? Like that was years ago. So my granddaughter is like 5 now.
mhm.
And when at the time would have been like not even 2,
Yeah,
uh, like nobody's asking, hey, remember that time they couldn't walk?
yeah, yeah.
Because, yeah, it was real
Mhm,
for, I don't know, a 6-month period of a
mhm,
couple years ago. But down the road,
mhm,
that's just not a problem anymore. Time will take care of that.
mhm,
And that's how I feel around relationships that naturally evolve.
mhm,
That projects, and I think that one of the things about project, and you and I have talked about projects versus operations.
mhm,
Because I do spend a fair amount of time in operations and I spend a fair amount of time with projects, but probably more in operations.
mhm.
And operations is that forever thinking.
Yeah,
Forever, what is it going to look like 20 years from now, 30 years from now? When I hand this, like 50 years from now, what will they think about how operations ran now?
yeah,
Projects tend to look at that beginning, middle, end.
yeah.
And what I could see in that project was this is disastrous today. And it was
Mhm,
disastrous. Like,
mhm.
to be clear, it was disastrous.
Yep.
But there was a spot in that plan that I was like, when you hit this part's not going to really matter.
Mhm.
It will come to it with whatever it looks like. And from that point forward,
Yeah, it will be
it
a
will work.
different thing. That's what
And
I
all you had to see was that one
Mhm,
spot and go, oh, that's like my granddaughter walking.
mhm,
When we get to that spot,
mhm.
from there forward, this is inconsequential.
Mhm.
Not that it didn't hurt. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces around
Yeah.
this conversation was
Mm.
because the external forces came in not just as, oh, this is data,
Yeah.
but that data had emotion attached to that
Yeah.
data that was not cool.
Yeah, it was really painful.
Yeah.
But I think, you're right, like, you gave the perspective of time, and I think sometimes just at a human level, I think what I've learned about that, phrase you dolled out at me and on me, I haven't really departed from it since you did that. But I've applied it in, like, a dozen different places, and I think for me too, my feistiness often tends to I feel motivated by being the one to always be looking ahead, thinking about the ultimate goal and working towards it and engineering the path and creating the plans and making sure that I'm engaging with all the individuals and the people that I'm going to have to leverage relationship with in order to get to that end goal. And it feels overwhelming when a lot of things are going wrong or they feel like they're misaligned from the plan. And I also take it personal. And I feel like when you said that, I was like, huh, like to a certain extent, the uncertainty of the future is also going to predict a considerable amount of the outcome here. And that in this case, that's actually maybe going to even work for you and not against you because time taking care of things, in the case of your granddaughter. And let's face it, in that 6-month season, it was really important for your family to make sure that your granddaughter, the accessibility was there, that their markers they weren't making, well, what's contributing to that? And if there were things, you would have addressed them. But what there wasn't evidently was there weren't any things. It was just a timing thing. And I think, so time taking care allows for that sort of cooling off emotional time. And then this other awareness of like, a lot of the work we do and the busyness we get up to is because we make it busy. Like we literally spin it. I know I do. Like I spin my own anxiety, which doesn't necessarily make the situation any easier at all. It just feels for me like I'm doing something with it. And I guess I can gain some satisfaction from the output of the doing, but that doesn't necessarily help me. And I just feel like you just were like, just remember, time will take care of so much of this. And from my perspective, too, that time gave me time to think differently, to see things differently. It just gave perspective and a bit of a breath almost, which I'm sure you felt the same way with your grandchild. Because as soon as she starts walking, it's like you said, everybody's like, well, that was much to do about nothing, right?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think she remembers it.
Well,
And I don't think if I brought it up today, anyone would remember it as anything other than, oh yeah, that happened.
hmm Yeah.
Because it was so brief and it was so in the moment. But you just brought up a spaced on perspective. And I think that's really, really important. Because there's a coach piece there that I do want to look at sometimes. Because, as coach, you always go like, where are you today? Where do you want to be?
hmm
And then we do use metrics along the way.
hmm
Because if you're not measuring it, it's not improving.
hmm
But sometimes people get so stuck in the timeline.
Yeah.
And I always come back to, and this is true of anything, it's true of business. I always say this, like we've got such a skewed vision of business today. We're like, I didn't make my quarter. So what? How close did you get?
Mm.
Oh, I made it 90%. What, like, how are we measuring the end being not 90% of awesome
hmm
as opposed to 10% of crap?
hmm
I had a friend, he's very dear, and if you're listening, you'll know this one. His daughter brought him a paper and it had 98%. And I can remember, because I knew what he was going to say. He was about to say, and I slapped him on the shoulder. He was about to say, what happened to that 2%?
Wow.
And again, I love my friend, Steve. Oh, you know who you are. Because some people only see the 2% and some people see the 98.
Yeah.
But it's a perspective thing.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at our workspace, we tend to look at our workspaces kind of like they're sterile, like it's a thing, like a project sterile.
You're right.
But this project is just people in motion. And maybe that's my project is a people in motion. Maybe that's my thing.
No, you're right. That's exactly what it is.
So in the same way that I would be gentle with my granddaughter, why can't I be gentle with the people in motion?
Yeah, we don't practice gentleness in a professional setting very much. And I think, unfortunately, we have somehow believed that gentleness is weak. And that is that's a scary thing because when, I know for me, I didn't treat myself with gentleness for the good portion of my early career. I wasn't gentle with myself. But what that also was an indicator of was that I lacked emotional intelligence. I didn't have self-awareness. And if you'd asked me if I had self-awareness, I would have said, yep. But that wasn't because it was true. That was because I thought I did.
Yeah, that's, again, beautiful. So I have journals that go back to me being 14.
Wow.
And there's nothing. And so, yeah, at each point I was trying to write this. My journals are, what do I think is the most wisdom I have captured at this time? It starts when I'm 14. You'll see a lot of early Star Wars in there. You'll see Kung Fu, the TV show from the 70s.
Wow.
Genuine wisdom that's in there.
Wow.
It's not me, to be clear. I was not brilliant. I was stealing other people's brilliance. But at any point, because you just brought up self-awareness, and again, we're talking about perspective.
Yeah.
Because this time will take care of it is a perspective piece.
It is.
I can see what I thought at 20. I can see what I thought at 30. I can see what I thought at 40.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that there's not some good ideas in those,
Mm-hmm.
but in my 50s, the perspective looking backwards is, God, that guy was so dumb. Somewhere in my 30s, I came to realize not only have I been dumb every day up until now, at least I know the 50-year-old me will look back at the 30-year-old me and go, I'm dumb. And I'm sure the 70-year-old me will look back at this conversation and go, what was that dummy talking about on that podcast? Because, oh my God, I sound so stupid.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to be self-deprecating. What I mean that to be is we're always on a journey.
It's perspective.
It's always on a journey. Tomorrow, you'll always know and have a little more wisdom than today.
Yeah.
And that's just as true for me in my 50s as it is for my granddaughter at 5.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's the perspective piece. And, thankfully, you were able to give me some perspective. And that phrase became a really healthy reframe that I've been able to continue to use. And I think for me, the time piece, that 4-letter word was really the aspect that I had never considered. I had never considered that when you think about time as being something that moves on with or without you, that there is opportunity for you also to almost submit to time.
Well,
and the lack of doing something with it. You can just let time sort of lead as well.
Well, you just brought something in that's always been, and I don't put this out, but I'm going to throw this in one today, which is around, it goes with or without you.
Mm-hmm.
So mortality, which we don't talk about. And certainly we don't talk about in projects a lot. but
project mortality, but
projects have mortality.
Yeah.
But the humans, if we're taking care of the humans who are moving things, they have mortality too.
Yeah.
And I've had both pre-military and military, I'm going to call them probably in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 very close calls in my life.
Right.
Those days where you go like, ooh, on any given day, this could have gone the other way, which has always given me a perspective about not just mortality, but legacy.
Mm-hmm.
What is it I leave behind?
Mm-hmm.
This conversation, these podcasts, all these pieces are around the things you leave behind.
Right.
And the work that I know I try to bring into the world is, how do we leave behind things for the workplace, for the home space, for the friendships, for any of these spaces that have growth. If you're into growth, yeah, there's stuff here that we can leave and do that. And when you're in a growth mindset, when you're in a, like, how is this developing? How is this moving? It changes the project. It changes the perspective. It changes what it looks like. So every project I'm at, I'm asking, how is this going to work, beginning, middle, and end, for this moment?
Right.
But then what does this do to the grand universe? Not just here on planet Earth, but like
impact.
Yeah. You bring up the backup camera sometimes as we talk about a project with the beginning, middle, and end, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Like, how much better is planet Earth for that, because of that one thing? That I'm sure that when that happened, they were like beginning, middle, and end. But what's the legacy?
Yeah. And I think, and when I talk about, just to be clear, the backup cameras that we use in most vehicles made and built today, because there was a time, both you and I certainly learned to drive without a backup camera. I mean, the best version of a backup camera I had was whoever was in the car yelling at me that there was something coming. Right? So the backup camera, the initial one, was a project. But of course, it's had many iterations since, because now you got all these extra things, and you got cameras on either side, and it's just, there's a whole bunch of other stuff now going on. Each one of those iterations is another project that's capitalizing on the initial project build. But you're right. It's also, what does having backup cameras in vehicles build as legacy impact? Because arguably, I know there's some people out there that hate them, because to them, they learned how to drive without them, and they think everyone should learn how to drive without them. But then you also have those entering, getting their license now, and they only ever have had them. So they learn to drive with them, which means now they're so embedded in our culture that if you took them away, we would cease to have as safe driving. right? So it's kind of like the impact and the legacy impact becomes, we completely changed the culture of driving.
Well, and can I time take care of this one?
Yes.
We're driving still.
I was just going to say, and I mean, teleportation.
My grandson could listen to this podcast 50 years from now and went,
like,
they were still driving?
they're talking
Those
about
crazy people. Like, the backup camera led to the detection cameras, led to the computer learning how to drive, learning to, like, what? Why would we ever put humans in there when 10% of them used to die all the time? Aren't you glad we moved past that?
Man, it's so true. It's so true. Think of how dated we are talking about all of what we've talked about just this moment. Time will take care of it, right? Irregardless, time does that. It just marches onwards. And yeah, fascinating. Well, there you go. There's your, that's what happens when I take over.
No, I'm good.
And steer the conversation and make you talk about something instead of you.
So let me ask if I can take it back for a second. I have one last question.
Okay.
Which is what was an example of a time where this learning showed up in a space for you since then? Because I certainly remember ground zero, but when in your professional life has this shown up again since then? Because I don't know the answer to this one.
I don't really either, but I'm thinking about it right now. When has time taken care of it? I'm trying to think about an example that I can talk to that's sort of easy, because I think, so much that I have endured in a lot of the work that I do in the last 2 years has definitely been affected. There was a professional board that I was on within the last 2 years, and there was some conflict on that board, and it was not easy, and it wasn't easy for me. And I will say that I did my best to use my wisdom to try to navigate the conflict. I certainly made apologies and accepted responsibility for my behavior in the ways that I felt I could. And yet that didn't solve all the challenges that were being felt on the board. And time took care of it. I continued to serve. I actually continued to lead. And then my term was up. And I have not been on that board for quite some time now. And I realize as I reflect back, I couldn't solve everything that was going on there. And that felt incredibly disempowering and frustrating to me at the time. But what I also knew then, because of that, was time was going to take care of it, because eventually my tenure on that board would just end. And it did. And at the same time, that's sometimes what has to happen. I would argue, Martin, there's a lot of people right now in positions of authority and power that the best thing for the organizations they work for is for them to retire and get out of the way. Now, they may not want to deal with that and face that. And I certainly didn't. But in that case, I see now in hindsight that time took care of it, because my leadership role came to an end, and that was time. And the organization moved on, and I'm no longer dealing with that situation. I did the best I could, and we move on. And so the time did take care of it. And my reflection upon that was, it's okay. Sometimes we do have to get out of the way and move on instead of fighting to try to claim some sort of success. We're not the ones who get to decide whether it was successful or not. That's actually a collaborative thing. And I think it also speaks to the legacy. A lot of times the success comes in the legacy, not in the immediacy. It takes time to see those benefits. So that's my example.
Well, thank you for taking the time to
have time take care of things.
Have time take care of things.
Well, thank you for letting me. I don't know what your topic was going to be, but that's what it was.
It's okay. It can be done on another day.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you. And I do mean this. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for taking this space. Mm-hmm. And take care of those people as they're moving those projects.
Yeah, well, and thank you for giving me that beautiful redirect that continues to serve me. So there you go. You never know the impact that you can have.